Oh, let me just begin with letting you know that next week Ajahn Barry Subhaddo will be leading the class. He'll be zooming in from Spain, and that'll be great. Uh, and I'll try to remember to say that again at the end. So next week, Ajahn Barry Subhaddo and we aim to meet up at the class once a month. Usually, like tonight, next week it'll be the last Thursday of the month. So that's Barry Subhaddo, Ajahn Barry Subhaddo. So, well, I mean, last week the theme I sort of gave myself was why meditate, our motivation, our motives for doing this, and I think that really is quite important. We know why we're doing this. We've got some idea why we're doing this, and I was saying things like curiosity. What's all this about? Which is a very helpful attitude to bring to a period of meditation anyway. But curiosity, you've sort of heard about mindfulness, for example, um, or just that meditation is a crucial part of Buddhist practice. Well, let's find out about that. Let's find out about that. Or maybe we've heard that meditation can actually help us. Yeah, make life easier, make life go easier for us. Maybe help us with problems of anxiety or just feeling down. Let's try it. Let's try it. And these are quite common reasons and entirely laudable reasons, you see, for getting into meditation. Now, don't forget, uh, uh, if meditation practice um, helps with life, helps us with anxiety or stress or depression. These are kind of authentic reasons for exploring this. You know, Buddhist practice is all about doing something about dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness of life. That's a pretty good reason for getting into this. And then those of us who've been doing this sort of thing for a while, they keep on coming back to practice because actually we know it works. You see, we know it works. We've learned something. We've learned something perhaps about the Dharma, Buddhism, or we've learned something about how to enable life to go easier. Maybe we've discovered a bit of peace of mind as a result of this practice. And we found peace of mind quite attractive. Let's do it again. So these are the sort of motives, I think. I mean, everybody's got their own motive. Everybody here tonight is doing it, I suspect, for a different reason. But whatever your motive, there are good reasons for doing it. I sort of want to continue that theme a bit tonight because, okay, we're sitting here tonight. We know why we're sitting here tonight. That's our motive, our motivation, call it what you like. And then the question is, how do we do it? How do we do it? Yeah, we've got here. How do we do it? And so hint at, touch on the question of sort of effort tonight. So it's quite interesting. And I might say a little bit more about this later on. But I'll tell you something about this. Some time ago now, I was online, I think, certainly wasn't leading, but I was online at some other class at the Buddhist Society. And the person doing it was sort of giving homework. That's right. She was giving homework. And she said something like, just go into a room, sit down for 15 minutes and see what happens. That was it. Just go into a room, sit down for a moment, and sit down for 15 minutes, let's say, and see what happens. And I think that's very good advice for the right sort of effort and attitude, we bring to a period of meditation. See what happens. Just the effort, just to come and sit down there and see what happens. See what happens perhaps with the eyes closed. That's good. Without any particular, just open-mindedness, see what happens. It fits in with the curiosity sort of motif of why we're doing it. Just come in and sit down for 15 minutes and just see what happens. And when you sort of think about it and you've tried it, it requires some sort of effort just to do that. Open-minded curiosity. So kind of no goals or targets or anything like that. Let's see what happens. So don't try and master meditation. Don't try and get peace of mind. As we practice more, we'll learn more about meditation. Peace of mind will probably develop as a result of our practice. But striving for peace of mind, like I said last week, is as self-defeating as trying to get to sleep. It requires a very subtle, skillful, clever sort of effort to do this practice. And the practice is just, I always describe mindfulness as being a practice of noticing and letting go, noticing and letting go, knowing what's going on, but not attaching to it, you see. And that requires effort. You've got to be aware, you've got to be awake, you've got to be alert. And that requires some effort. And I might say a bit later on more about the effort required to stay awake and alert in the period of meditation. That may require effort, okay? But it also requires a much more difficult effort, which is to let go. Everybody, we all know when something is buzzing around in our heads. Almost by definition, if it's buzzing around in our heads, we're very attached to it by definition, even if it's a negative, a nasty thought, a nasty emotion, an unhappy memory, or a happy one, a joyful one, eager anticipation of something. It's darn difficult to let go of it, but we need to make an effort to let go, to relax. So this is this paradox in meditation practice about effort, the effort to be alert, to know what's going on, to recognize what's going on in the mind in particular. But then the effort is to let go, to let go. And that is difficult, isn't it? We all know that. And it's to do with this ability to pay attention to what the attention is up to. When the mind wanders, and it will do this evening, when the mind wanders, that's part of our nature. It's not a fault. It's just the way things are. It's part of our kind of automatic way of getting on with things. But we have to make an effort to notice that. And no judgment involved. There we go again. There the mind goes again. So the effort is to notice it's happening. And then the effort is involved in letting go quite deliberately. And that's a challenge. And that's why we usually have a meditation object. Later on in our practice, when we're a bit more kind of skilled at doing this, maybe we don't need a meditation object. But I find it very helpful to have a meditation object. So we have a choice, you see. Just as we had a choice tonight, everybody had a choice tonight to come to this online class or to do something else, right? We made a conscious decision, I think, to come to this class. When we're doing a period of meditation, the mind will wander. And at that stage, there's a conscious decision as to what to do with the attention. Do we keep the attention on blah, 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 in my head? Or do I point my attention quite deliberately to whatever meditation object you'll use? I usually use the breath. You could use a mantra, you could use sensations in the body, you could use the sound of silence, you could use mala beads. But there's a choice there. There's a choice there. It's our decision what we do with the attention. It's quite interesting, isn't it? It's like, what do we do? It's in a sense, we call the shots. We don't have to be trapped in thinking. We don't have to be. We learn to let go. The effort to let go, I think, it's quite a challenge. Alert, relaxed posture. You see, what I'm leading up to here is we're going to sit for a few minutes, obviously. We're going to sit. And during that period of time, we're going to compose the body in a way which supports the practice I've described. So it's going to be an alert posture, an upright posture, an awake posture, right? But also a relaxed posture. It's a balancing act, an alert, aware, relaxed posture, relaxed posture. And the relaxed bit of the instructions, as it were, is to facilitate this letting go. The analogy is as if there's a muscle in the mind that's clamping down on something. and we let go. And to help that, you see, we most of us use a meditation object. And I'm assuming that it's a sensation of the breath on the nostrils or the abdomen or wherever we feel the breath. Couple of deep breaths. Oh yeah, it's there. For me, nostrils. There we go. And then I have a choice. At any time over the next few minutes, the attention may wander. And do I let it or not? And I know it's wandering because I'm alert, but can I relax that grasping onto, that clinging onto the fascinating or trivial stuff that's going on in my mind? Or can I direct the attention towards the meditation, the feeling of breathing? That's the practice. That's the effort required. The effort required is the effort to notice and to let go. And in my book, letting go often requires more effort than anything else. You know, thoughts and emotions are terribly enticing, and we hang on to them. You know, for better or for worse, we hang on to them. Can we let go of them? And the practice is switch the attention very deliberately from here to here for me, from out of what's going on in my head to the sensation of the breath in the body. That's the practice. So I'll be quiet sort of quiet, give a bit of guidance as we go along. By the way, if you're new to the class and you've got any questions, send through in the chat. We'll have a questions and discussion session at the end. And everybody will be unmuted then. But send through anything in the chat if you want to do that, including, any messages to me like, please speak more clearly or something like that. That's quite okay to do that. Very helpful to me to know what's going on at your end of things. We'll have a little break in a while as well, and then sit again. So compose the body, an alert, relaxed posture. And everybody's got to figure out what that means for you right there. What does an alert, relaxed posture mean? For me, sitting reasonably upright, a stable posture. I don't particularly want to be wriggling around all the time. I want to park my hand somewhere because we're naturally a bit fidgety. Still alert. Yeah, reasonably alert. Eyes, if we're very drowsy, sit with the eyes half open. If we're not, I suggest we close the eyes. And to encourage this practice of noticing and relaxing, noticing and letting go, to check out how the body feels tonight. In minute sensations, not big opinions about how we are. Young, old, male, female, but more like just, how's the body feel when we're sitting here? Next week with Ajahn Barry, we'll do if he does what he usually does, it'll be a very detailed period of body scanning the body. I just notice that way the body feels around pressure points on the floor, feet on the floor, knees on the floor. We're sitting on the floor, sitting on a chair. Gosh, you can really feel the weight of the body sitting there, can't you? Yeah. Hands, parked hands somewhere. How are they feeling? And they get parked, they're warm. And you notice any tendency to move them, to move them. And let go. Just notice that. It's noticing and letting go. Noticing and not doing. Something we compulsively do is, move our hands to, I don't know, do something. Just notice that. Now this time, let go of that impulse. Yeah? There's the impulse. Let it go. Bring the attention back to the breath. Or the next sensation in the body, you see. How's the abdomen? Feel the breath in the body. How's the whole trunk of the body? If you're sitting on a chair, and if you're sitting back in the chair, you'll notice the back of the chair and our back. If we're sitting forward, perhaps that's even better. less incentive to nod off. Shoulders, arms, shoulders, face. Relax. Can really, this relax thing. You know, there's any tension in the shoulders. When we do, we can relax. You can't relax really until you know there's some tension in the body. Relax. Learning to let go. The jaw. Lips are probably closed. Relax the jaw. Not trying too hard, I hope, tonight. There's nothing to get. Just sitting here and seeing what happens. So you don't have to struggle with anything. We might have heard that Buddhist practice involves concentration. That's a dangerous word. It's more like concentration happens when we let go of everything except the meditation object. If the meditation object's the breath, when the attention rests on the breath, and we could say it's concentrating on the breath. That's not a very good term though, is it? It's just resting on the breath. So we're aware of sensations in the body, around the scalp, the eyes, breath on the nostrils, or on the lips, saliva in the mouth, through the trunk of the body, the arms, the heartbeat, into the abdomen, moving away there. We're feeling we're sitting on something, down into the pelvis, the hips, and the knees, lower legs and feet. There we are. We're experiencing the body not as an opinion, really, a judgment, we're not categorizing it. It's a mass of sensations. It's quite interesting. The body is just a mass of sensation as we experience it right now. And we're not particularly attaching to it. We just notice it's the way it is. Okay. Notice and let go. Now and then we let go to what? We direct the attention quite deliberately, from the feeling of sitting, the weight of the body sitting, to the breath. I could focus on sitting on this chair, backside on chair, for the next half hour, or I could point the attention back to the breath. I went along to another meditation class, not a Buddhist one at all, the other day, on Tuesday afternoon. And the person leading the class played some music. And I was faced with a choice. I could either listen to the music or I could direct the attention to the breath. My choice. And if I listen to the music, I might kind of, I don't like this tune, or this, that, and the other, or I really do like this tune, I want more. I could just point the attention back to the breath. And some children were running around outside. It was a choice whether it disturbed my practice, whether I noticed the sound, hearing, pointed the attention back to the breath. We learn to let go, redirect the attention to the breath, the feeling of the breath. In breath, out breath. Long breath, short breath, deep or shallow. Just notice it. Each breath begins, each breath ends. If you want a bit more noticeable meditation object. If the mind's a bit scatty, for example, count along with the breath. Breathe in and out. 1, 2, 3, up to 10. Go back to the start again. Lose count on the way. Not a fault. That's interesting. Go back to the start again, to 1. That gives the attention a bit more to do, you see. Or it's quite okay to use a mantra. Peace, peace. Buddha, Buddha. May I be well, may others be well. The mind will wander, whatever we use. We bring it back to the meditation object. It's our decision, it's our choice. And as we've been sort of sitting here, maybe the mind is beginning to quieten down a little bit, maybe. Perhaps we're noticing that allowing the attention, notice I'm saying allowing the attention, not forcing the attention, allowing the attention to rest on the breath, allowing it to get there by letting go of everything else. Well, we find that the breath is really quite a pleasant place to be. The feeling of breathing is not stimulating, but it's sort of intrinsically peaceful, isn't it? If our motive for getting into meditation in the first place was discovering a bit of peace of mind, yeah, maybe we've done it. The way to get a bit of peace of mind is to let go of mental turbulence, which is easier said than done, but we're doing it. It's practice of the wandering mind, noticing it, redirecting the attention back to the breath, time and time again. We're building up a little habit, aren't we? A little habit, a peaceful habit. Which, of course, can be quite handy when we're not formally sitting in meditation. The ability to notice what the mind is up to without getting trapped, because we can let go. to take this opportunity to stretch, wriggle around, ease out any tension. So those of us who are kind of Buddhists and are familiar with the Eightfold Path may be a bit surprised that, I've been talking about the right amount of effort in a way which is very different from that step on the path which says, when you get to the meditation aspects of the Eightfold Path, there's right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, and there's right effort, right mindfulness, right, well, we call this concentration, tranquility. And right effort, in the sense of the Eightfold Path, is not quite what I've been talking about here at all. Right effort is important, actually, and it's like one of these lists, certainly in Theravada Buddhism, which is very helpful. So there are four right efforts. The effort to avoid, to overcome, to develop, and maintain. To avoid, overcome, develop, maintain. Avoid, overcome. To do what? What's all that about? It's about mind states. So right effort is all about doing something about avoiding and overcoming negative, unhelpful mind states. And I'll say a bit more about that in a moment, I think. And then to develop their opposites, to develop and maintain their opposites. Well, that's what that's about. And we all know that, if we've got, well, what are these unhelpful? Let's work with the unhelpful ones for the moment. The unhelpful mind states that they talk about are these things called the five hindrances, and they are sensory desire. And just be clear about how this kind of impacts upon our mindfulness practice and our ability to develop tranquility and concentration. Sense pleasures can become very, very attractive indeed. I want, and I've got to get it. It's just fantastic. And it's like all we think about. Doesn't actually help meditation. They may be pretty, not necessarily unpleasant things. It's like, maybe you haven't had any lunch today or anything this evening. I've really got to eat. Something as innocuous and moral as I really need some food. That could make meditation this evening, developing a bit of peace of mind, quite difficult. Right? Let alone all sorts of other physical, sensual desires. So sensory desire is something which can impede our practice. So again, it's quite natural, but it can impede our practice. We might want to do something about it. And then there's all the stuff we were talking about, I think, last week. Anger, resentment, ill will, aversion. If you come here this evening with a big row, you had just a big row, you're gonna have a big row later on. It doesn't half make focusing on the breath difficult. The mind's not very tranquil at all. If there's some long-run grudge that keeps on winding away in the mind, that tape's playing. It'd be nice if we could do something about it, just to say, notice it and let go, ha. It's not quite as easy as that. That's a negative mind state that we might want to avoid if we could, but overcome it when it's there. And what I'm going to perhaps say a bit more about in a moment is just total dullness. Now, I have great admiration, frankly, for people who go to meditation classes at 6:30, 7 o'clock, or whatever on an evening, because particularly if you've been working or running around, scuttling around doing things, you're pretty tired actually. It's not a million miles from bedtime. But if we're feeling dull, sleepy, lethargic, inertia, uh, we find ourselves falling asleep in meditation, all of which is quite normal, it's quite natural, it's part of the human condition. If the mind is grey and soggy, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Maybe we could do something about avoiding this dullness, this sleepiness, this drowsiness of the mind and develop this opposite. And then there's restlessness and worry. The mind is all over the place. It's agitated. It can't settle. It can't be satisfied. There again, one can say, well, just notice it and let go of it, but that's easier said than done. So the Buddha in his wisdom says, yeah, this is a bit of a problem that may need a bit more attention than just noticing and letting go. Straight practice. And then of course, there's doubt as well. That's the fifth one. Because if we really have great doubts about what all this is about, we're never going to do it anyway. We're going to be locked on our doubts. And I've come across two people recently who have been doing Buddhism for quite a long time. And both of them have decided, they're not Buddhist. Whatever that means, they've decided they're not Buddhist. And to get, it's like, well, okay. Okay. But maybe, maybe there were other ways of handling this. I don't know. Anyway, what I want to do is just talk about, in general, how to handle these obstacles to meditation. They're not insuperable. It doesn't mean you can't meditate, right? It doesn't mean you can't meditate if your mind is full of desire and hate, confusion, and it's jittery all over the place. It just makes it a bit more difficult. And there's another paradox. I find Buddhist practice full of paradoxes. So there are these things which are obstacles or hindrances to mindfulness, but the best strategy, first of all, is to be mindful of them. Oh, there they are again. Oh, there's this fight coming up in my mind. There's this desire for something to eat pretty soon, There's this worry that keeps on bugging me. And just to recognize it. There it is. The first thing is just be mindful of this thing which makes mindfulness so difficult. It's there. Recognize it, accept it, observe it without any judge. Well, the judgment is, not a good state of mind. And then there's a chance that we can just let go of it as it is. What's it like? Notice it. I mean, what does anger, really feel like? It has a physical echo in the body, doesn't it? What does depression feel like in the body? Everybody knows it's a heaviness. Notice it, accept it. Oh, it's like this. It's like this. What's it like? It's like, what's it like? It's like this. Gives us a chance of then letting go of it and redirecting the attention towards the breath. Another good thing to do is actually, to remind ourselves about, why we're doing this in the first place. When we get into practice out of curiosity, or more to the point, to help life go better, make life go easier for us, and then it appears not to, or something crops up in the practice, a big worry, a memory from the past. It's like, yeah, but we're doing it to do something about that. Just understand. It's like return to our motivation, really. And then the other thing to do is just to try and cultivate the opposite. I think I was talking about that particularly last time when somebody said, what do you do about anger? What do you do about anger? But why not develop thoughts of goodwill, positive psychology, practice loving kindness? I just want to pick up on the sloth and torpor one tonight, actually. And this is going to be a recurrent, issue for all of us doing meditation in the evening. So we're dull, we're lethargic, we're falling asleep. The mind is like cold congealed porridge. It's difficult to work with, isn't it? It's difficult to work with. But we can work with it, you see. We can work with it. And the first thing is to recognize it. There it is. This is a tendency at this time of night that we've got. And then to try and prevent, avoid, overcome, develop, maintain. Avoid it. How can we avoid it? We don't have to sit with our eyes closed. We don't have to use the breath as a meditation object. If we're tired, sitting with the eyes closed is a recipe for going to sleep, not for noticing and being alert. We notice there's that tendency in the mind, right? But there's no need to sit with the eyes closed, right? There's no need to follow the breath. Why don't we stand up? I can't do it here, but stand up, walk around, use some other meditation object. Beads, a mantra, loving kindness, all sorts of, because tiredness is such a ubiquitous condition for meditation. It really is until we get a hang of it. All sorts of things are used as tricks, as it were, to make us alert to mindfulness, nodding off. I mean, I remember at Amaravati, the nuns in particular would sit with a book on their head, and then when they were nodding off, well, you know what would happen. We tried tricks like that. Or Ajahn, the meditation teacher, would encourage his monks at night sometimes to go out into the forest, right, into a clearing, and there'd be little ladders going up to branches on the trees. And it's up you go, and there'd be this meditation platform up a tree. And okay, now meditate. And of course, you're sitting up on a little platform up a tree. It's very, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to go to sleep in that position. So all little tricks like that to avoid this dullness, this sluggishness. Invent your own. Invent your own. There was on my desk here somewhere, there was a pin, a drawing pin. And if you're sitting with a drawing pin on your hand, point facing upwards, and you're kind of slumping, you're going to feel it. So all sorts of little tricks to avoid getting into that dull state. And then, of course, obviously, to attend to the posture. This is where the upright posture comes in. Okay, attend to the posture. Put a bit more effort, that's the word effort again, into the posture. Sit up straighter, breathe in deeper, quite deliberately. Take on board some oxygen. Oh, we've got the lights on in the room. We've got fresh air coming in because we've opened the windows as well. We've had a cup of coffee, of course, before we started meditation. Right? And then we sit. We put a bit more attention in the posture. Right? And then the really subtle practice is to make the dullness, the mental dullness, the object of meditation, to explore it. What's it like to be really dull, really drowsy, for this impetus to go to sleep? And make it the most interesting thing in our meditation practice. Be mindful of dullness. Rather than letting dullness swamp our mindfulness practice, turn it all around. Really investigate dullness. And before one thing we discover, if there's a tendency to nod off during a period of meditation, is the mind will wander or daydream, and that's what's going on. Notice that and let go of it. Notice that and let go of it. But all sorts of little strategies we can do. Avoid, overcome, develop, maintain. Avoid negative states of mind, unhelpful states of mind, and to develop their opposites. And that's part of the Eightfold Path. Right effort. Let's sit for a little bit more. Compose the body. Maybe we've got up and opened the window, put the lights on. A lot of people seem to like meditating. I've noticed this, meditating kind of I was going to say in the gloom. I don't really mean that in a sort of dim light. When I was at the Buddhist Society back in the time when we taught face to face, there'd be a dimmer switch, and everybody would want me to dim the lights, and I turned them up pretty much nearly full on, because you've got people coming in from work in London, central London, to sit in meditation, and doesn't actually help. If it's a bit dark, let's brighten things up a little bit. So, compose the body, alert posture, but it's a relaxed posture. And maybe close the eyes, but not if we're tired. Sit with the eyes open. Notice the breath. And if we're tired, breathe a bit more deeply, quite deliberately, until we've got a bit more oxygen on board. Then we can let the breath go back to its normal. In and out. How's the mood? How's the mind? How's the body? In breath, out breath. When the mind wanders, there we go. Notice that. Let go. Relax. Let the attention rest on the next in breath, the next out breath. And then, after one breath, two breaths, half an in breath, half an out breath, the attention wanders. We notice that. Bring the attention back quite deliberately to the breath and meditation. Gradually we're developing, it's like any physical exercise, isn't it? You're working away at this physical exercise to build up that muscle in the arm or in the core or in the back or something. And here we're developing a letting go muscle. Practice makes perfect, perhaps. Or maybe really what we're doing is learning to let go of a tight mental muscle by practice. Please could everybody be unmuted? Wongo. And so now we can discuss things, questions. Nothing's come through by chat, but if you want to send anything, chat box is open. Nothing's come through by chat. What else? Or just ask a question. Actually, I thought I'd say something first of all about doubt, because you know, there are all sorts of doubts, aren't there? I mean, particularly about what we're doing. So you know, you sort of do your practice, and you it's quite a good thing to appreciate, if you like, the benefits of the practice. A very good thing to do is to ask ourselves at the end of a period of practice, what have I learned? What have I learned? But if we go into meditation with a lot of expectations, and wow, it doesn't happen like that, we can have doubts about whether we're wasting our time or not, whether we should do it differently or try a different tradition or a different teacher or whatever. And that's fair enough, actually. If we have doubts about the Buddha's teachings, it's jolly good to do a bit of research, a bit of reading, talk to other people about it. If we think there might be other ways of meditating, there's plenty of other options around there, which is perfectly okay to explore. So these are doubts that can be quite sort of easily, in a way, and sensibly addressed. Ask somebody else. If you've got a question about Dharma, I don't know if you like the theory or the practice, well, just ask about it, or go online, see what you can find there. But it's when you sort of get to the point where you find yourself thinking, this is all a complete waste of time. I've been doing this for so many months or so many years. I've tried different this, that, and the others. And it all seems a complete waste of time. I'm going to give it up. And I think everybody who, I have a suspicion, anybody who does any kind of spiritual practice at all goes through a rather horrible period of doubt like that. You know, it's like, what do we do about it? And one thing I've discovered, I mean, quite a while ago, is actually when these deep, almost existential doubts come into the mind, and we've been doing a bit of mindfulness practice for a while, then however profound these doubts are, it's just more stuff in the head, it's just more thinking. And thoughts, emotions come and go, you know, they come and go. So on sitting there, you can sit here this evening with all sorts of doubts going through the mind, and feeling it's a waste of time. But it's just like a profound thought, like Buddhism is a waste of time. It's all nonsense. Is at one level just like the thought, what's for supper? It's just another thought. It comes and it goes. It's not there the whole time. And when we notice that, it's as transitory as any other thought, because these deep doubts aren't there the whole time. They're not there the whole time. But when one sees that they are as effervescent as anything else, then that's right practice, actually. You notice that it comes and it goes. It's not me. It's not nice when it's there, right? But it's just more mental stuff. You notice it and you let go of it. And then, of course, there's no doubt. It's perfect practice is to notice doubt, you know, and then let go of it. You know, ask questions about it. You know, who's doubting? That sort of thing. And make it part of the practice. And you see it's temporary and transitory as anything else. And then there's no doubt. In some sense, the practice has grabbed us. There's no way out. There's no way out. I mean, if the thought, mindfulness practice, Buddhist practice is a complete waste of time, it's just another thought in my mind. I notice it, It comes, it goes. It feels like it does if it did that. But then one notices the mind lets go of it, the attention lets go of it. Or I can, I can direct the attention somewhere else. Then that's it. The practice has got me, hasn't it? Just got to keep at it. Anyway, look, that's enough about me. Are there any questions or comments or anything else? Oh, before we do that, the important stuff is Ajahn Barry Subhaddo next week coming to the class. So please, not just make a note of it, but bring a friend when you come. Any questions, please, at all, or comments, or suggestions for further topics? Well, I'm on the hot seat here.
Hello, Colin.
Hi, Meg.
I'm not sure whether it's a comment or a question, but it was thank you, because I thought it was really helpful to look at effort, because I've realised I was getting perhaps a bit complacent about my mind wandering, like relaxing, because we're always told not to worry about it and it's normal to have these thoughts. So I think that I was getting a bit, so I wasn't bothered at all. And I was thinking, oh, that's all right. I've been thinking about something else for 5 minutes, rather than making the effort of, I shouldn't be thinking about other things. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, vaguely. I mean, you're doing two things, but there's also the judgment involved in all of this, you see.
Well, that's the problem.
Well, I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm saying, you just notice that, your mind wanders and then you sort of beat yourself up. Shouldn't be doing that and all that sort of stuff. And it's quite normal for the mind to wander. I mean, the comparison is with the heartbeat. It's like a heartbeat. It's not a lot I can do about it. And the mind wanders, the ordinary attention wanders, and that's the nature of the ordinary mind. I mean, the difference is we can be aware of that. One can be aware of one's pulse. I think I can just about notice it through a sweater here. And one can be aware of the wandering mind. And when the mind wanders, all I'd say is just forget all this judgment, wandering mind. Or you can put a label on it. Fantasizing, thinking, worrying, planning, whatever. And then deliberately point the attention back to whatever your meditation is. You've disappeared, Meg, from my screen.
I know, it's because I sat down where it's dark. No, it's just that I think, it's not a judgment, it's a learning point. It's just like I've noticed that there wasn't much effort involved lately, that's all.
Yeah.
Because I was so complacent, it's fine to have a wandering mind, let's just sit here with a wandering mind.
Well, that's one way to pass the time. I mean, it comes back to what's your motivation for doing this Buddhist practice, actually. I mean,
yes.
most people we're just kind of like, we're on autopilot. The mind's on autopilot. There are all these habits that that we follow. And, that's all right. On the other hand, Buddhist practice challenges that a little bit. That's all. It's like, do you want to get trapped in that, or do you want to get off that? I mean, if what's going on in one's mind is always pleasant, joyful, exciting, and interesting things, it's more of an effort actually, because you haven't got the dukkha there. If one's full of very depressing, unhappy thoughts, you really want to do something about that. It's a big motive to sort of get into a bit of Buddhist practice, for example. But that's one thing I've sort of noticed in the days, in the pre-COVID days when I go into prison. Things are pretty tough. So they're very happy. Excuse me. They're very pleased to get a bit of meditation practice in, because it gives them a bit of escape from all the horrible stuff that's going on in their minds. And then they say things like, well, I'm really going to keep this up when I go out, or I'm going to become a Buddhist monk when I get out. And it's like, then they get out and the world looks pretty good, actually, compared with what's gone before. And it's like, well, if everything's treating us well, You know, what's all this? Don't need to do this. Don't need to do this. And I mean, that's the thing. When one is having a good time, it's you know, if all things really were bright and beautiful, why would anybody be getting into any sort of religious practice, any sort of faith practice at all? It's just that, you know, then something comes along which I'll use which frightens us, which makes us worry. You know, there's a disappointment, a loss, a death, an illness. And wow, actually, all things are not bright and beautiful, and that's a sort of a kick up the backside to get into a bit of Buddhist practice. I mean, I'm just speaking personally here, but I think that's true. I think a lot of people come to Buddhism in the first place because of life's, you know, downsides, actually. But I mean, because the mind is wandering, don't beat yourself up. I mean, that's the nature of the mind. That's what one's working with. And it's just like, can one be aware of that in a friendly way, but not engage with it too much? Is that any help? Now you've gone all silent again. Are we all on mute?
No, I was on mute. No, thank you. Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got any comments, please? Questions about what we've been doing or whatever? Anything?
Colin, perhaps we could then expand that further another week. I like the fact that you've moved on to sort of right effort, but letting go is a large part of that. And from what Meg's saying, perhaps look a little bit more at some different techniques for letting go of those thoughts that come in. I mean, there's lots of things that people do, isn't there? You can sort of say, not now thought. I know people who use that when thoughts persistently coming into their mind, they'll just say not now thought to let it go, or to use the idea of clouds and just see each thought as a cloud that's just passing by in the sky, or things like that. Whether
I might say something about the general issue of thinking.
Yeah.
Because when people come to meditation, particularly to begin with, they say things like, I'm thinking the whole time. I can't, you know, it's like non-stop thinking. And you want me to be, you know, or blank all this out. No, I don't want people to blank it out. That's not what it's about at all. It's like, as I say, we breathe, the heart beats, and the mind thinks. And that's kind of okay. Meditation practice is not blanking everything out. I remember hearing somebody in a book club, and I hadn't let on. I don't think I knew that I was into meditation. They were talking about meditation or something, and she said something like, "Well, I went to this meditation class, and they said just stop thinking, just stop thinking." And it's just ha ha ha. You know, it's not like that. It isn't like that. It's more like how we relate to thinking. Do we attach to thinking? You know, can we? And it's a heck of a question. Can we actually let go of it if we want to? And it's not that thinking is wrong. I mean, I'm my background's in academics, and I was paid, amongst other things, to think. It's as simple as that. A lot of people have got jobs where they've got to think, and there's a time and place for thinking. And thinking can be, you know, really quite absorbing. If you're quite absorbing and not in itself harmful. It depends on the thoughts. So I mean, I will say a bit more about if you know the thinking. See, look, about the thinking problem. Oh, it's a problem, is it? It's that sort of thing. Oh, it's a thing. Oh, thinking is a problem, is it? And I mean, without getting, as I said, one could sort of spend quite a while talking about this, but it's important to notice that our thoughts are not continuous. That, you know, we believe that we think all the time. Well, obviously we don't think all the time, because we don't think when we're asleep, for example. I mean, I know we dream, but anyway, well, you know, a thought has its own life. It comes and it goes. And then another thought comes and it goes. And there are, and I mean, the practice is often being aware of when a thought stops. Oh, you know, you can almost, that thought stopped, which is another thought, by the way. You got caught in all of this. Oh, I'm not thinking, it's a thought. But I mean, one's just aware, intuitively aware, that this process is for a moment stopped. Or one's aware that having thought about one thing, what I'm going to have for supper, I'm now thinking about, will the car start in the morning? You notice one thought only has a life of its own. I mean, even some deep concern is not there the whole time. It is not. I mean, since you're feeding me material to work with, let me tell you, and I'm sure I've said this before, but I mean, I've been doing meditation retreats and stuff for a long, long time. And I went on some retreat and I was very stupid. I'll confess, I tried to get enlightened. Okay, that's a killer. I really tried to get enlightened. And as a result, I had a god awful time. I really had a horrible time. And you talk about sleep and all that sort of stuff. People who were in the dorm with me were sort of saying, I was tossing and turning, and having all sorts of wild dreams and all the rest of it. And I came off that retreat after years of doing this practice and sitting in front of a class at the Buddhist Society and all the rest of it. And I thought, no. I mean, I've heard all these I'm well aware of suffering and its cause, but these guys, like the monks, they don't know what to do about it. They really don't. I mean, so all this was going on. I was extremely exhausted for obvious reasons, burning up mental energy like crazy. And the first thing I did, Mrs. Amanrati, I walked into the office of a nun who I've known a long time, that when she was a lay person, was at the Buddhist Society with me and all the rest of it. And I just said, never again, kind of thing. And I even remember thinking, Barry, who was a layperson, oh, Barry can pick up the class and do it all, and I'll just back off. And this nun, who's a good friend of mine, and she said, okay, well, don't go home and don't meditate. And I thought, that's exactly the advice I need, because I'm not going to meditate anyway. So to be told the right thing to do is to do what you were going to do anyway, made me feel quite happy, actually. So I got home and exhausted, still absolutely convinced that this was not for me. And I'm now going to tell you about a great mystical experience. But the way I'm talking, it's not really. But it's a profound experience. I got home completely exhausted, absolutely wiped out. And I thought, what I need is some ice cream. What I need is some ice cream. I don't know why I was hungry. And so I got this big tub of, I think it was Haagen-Dazs Belgian chocolate ice cream out of the freezer. And I sat on the sofa and I just spooned this stuff into my mouth. And then something kicked in. It's like, I noticed, you can't stop noticing when you've done this for a bit. I suddenly noticed, without trying to, I noticed that at the moment I was pogging this ice cream, I was not thinking all the stuff about it's all a disaster. Buddhism is a nonsense. I've wasted my life. At that moment, it wasn't there. At that moment, it wasn't there. So I celebrated with another spoonful of ice cream, and here I am now. But you just see that even these profound dark night of the soul things are impermanent. They come and they go. They come and they go. Now, in terms of ordinary practice, when we're sitting like this now, just notice the beginning and end of thinking. It's like there may be a continuum of thoughts, but there are gaps in between, little gaps in between. And please don't say I'm not thinking, because that's another thought. One's just aware of these things. It comes and it goes. And then it's, one of the reasons for like going on a retreat is because in a retreat situation, the mind quietens down a heck of a lot. It really does. And so, you can be kind of sitting there and there's not a lot going on in the mind. And then suddenly there's a thought that comes into the mind. And it's like a bubble coming out of the pond. It just bubbles up, blah, 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 bubble, and it bursts. And you say, oh, there's a thought. It came and it got, it came along and it went. You see the beginning and the end of a thought. And that's a sort of, you can just notice beginnings and ends of thought. And another sort of analogy, an American teacher I heard of sometime, way back, and he was describing what's going on as this: you're driving your car along, and you come to a level crossing, and the gates are down because there's going to be a train coming. Okay, so a freight train comes along and you're sitting there in your car watching this, and initially it's just a blur of the box cars. He said box of the trucks, you know, going along, and then suddenly you're paying more and more attention, and you realize that it's not a continuous thing at all. You know, there's a truck, there's a gap, another truck, gap, another truck, and you become at least as aware of the gaps as you are of the trucks. And the analogy is with thinking. Okay, it's like thinking. It's not there the whole time. So, you know, pay particular attention to thinking, not in the sense of eliminating it, destroying it, but just notice it's not there all the time. It's not there all the time. And you see, this is quite a profound practice, because one's becoming aware, you know, right now there are 14 people still here. Well done, everybody. Everybody hasn't, you're all still there. My goodness me, that's amazing. No, there are 14 of us here, and we're all thinking different things, you know, and we've all got different bodies and all the rest of it. We're all different, but the one thing we have in common is we have this quality of awareness. I'll use a word. We're conscious. We're conscious of, you know, we're conscious of our thoughts. I mean, how would you know you were thinking unless you were conscious of thinking? Right? How would you know you were conscious of feeling a bit peckish? How would you know you were hungry if you weren't conscious of that feeling? And we all have this quality. It's completely impersonal. Each one of us here has a lot of personal stuff going on in our heads and in our lives, and all the rest of it. You know? But what we all have in common, I think Ajahn Subhaddo talks about this unitive quality we all have. Everybody shares this at this moment, is this ability to notice what's going on, to be conscious, to be aware, to be consciously aware of what's going on. That's completely impersonal. You know, my quality is the same as your quality, the same as your quality is. That quality is the same for all 14 of us at this very moment. And what we're doing in this Buddhist practice is gradually learning to get in touch with that natural state of the mind. The natural state of the mind is just impersonal. That's the impersonal bit. It's anatta, it's not self, right? It's open, expansive. It's intrinsically quite peaceful. And that's what this practice is all about. It's all about becoming aware of the gaps between the thoughts. You know, the gap between the trucks as they go across at the level crossing. That's what we're doing here. And there you go. I think it's time for a bowl of soup at this end of the... Look, thanks a lot for coming, everybody. And please don't forget that Ajahn Barry is coming next week. And if you know Ajahn Barry, you'll want to be here. And if you don't, it's time you did. He's a lovely bloke. He's been on the scene a long time. And what's particularly valuable is, I mean, as I say, he was a layperson in the meditation class at the Buddhist Society, at the same time as I was. And then he defected and became, he then got into Zen, big time into Zen. And he was the top student of Venerable Myokyoni's Zen class at the Buddhist Society. And then for whatever reason, he moved on from that. And he went to Amaravati and became a Theravadan monk for at least 10 years. And over the last, I'm not sure how many years, he's become a lay person. So he can see everything from every point of view. And I mean, the interesting thing is he has got this Zen background as well as the formal Theravadan monastic background. And as I say, he's a lay person as well, just like all 14 of us here. I don't think there are any covert monks or nuns here. You never quite know, actually. So do come along. I mean, it's always a delight to have Barry. I mean, personally, he's a friend and all the rest of it. So it's good to have him, and he's got lots of wisdom, for want of a better word, lots of wisdom to share with us. So that's a treat in store next week. Meantime, thanks for coming. Take care, and do a bit of meditation. How about that? Okay, I'm going to switch off in a moment. And thank you, Wong Do, for staying with us this evening and making sure it all happened.